Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jonathan Nicholson with ISP Supplies. Today, we have a very exciting panel discussion with ALTA Labs. So to introduce everybody here, first of all, we have Byron Dunn with ISP Supplies on the line with us. Hi, Byron. Also, we have Tony Rassavong, Chase Harrison, and Matt Hardy with ALTA Labs. Welcome to the discussion, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Basically, in the last webinar, we talked more about the products. We went through slides and all the technical details about them. And this one, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're actually going to have product unboxing of all of their switches, their 8-port, 16 and 24-port switches, of their AP6 and AP6 Pro access points. We're also going to go over the setup of all of these, as well as ALTA Pass, and also we might get a chance to crack a couple open as well, so we can take a look at all the internal components that make this such an incredibly amazing new solution that they put together, and basically see what makes it tick. So I'm going to hand it over to Chase. Chase, take it away.
Wonderful, Jonathan. Byron, thank you for having us, and thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this presentation. We hope that you find it useful, obviously, as you continue to consider ALTA Labs and even deploy ALTA Labs in your projects. As Jonathan mentioned, obviously our goal today is to help you feel a little more comfortable with the hardware, what you're getting out of the box, and then also help drive home the point of how easy it is for our stuff to set up and manage remotely. Just for the record, I am actually in Southern Utah. Matt is actually in Atlanta, Georgia. And the two of us, he'll be helping me set up our lab a little bit today and walk you through some of the benefits of it, not only a cloud managed offering, but then you'll be able to see how quickly our equipment comes online and be able to see how well it performs inside of that cloud infrastructure. So first, as Jonathan mentioned, we'd like to actually crack open an AP6 on camera and show you a little bit of the kind of the secret sauce behind the scenes, what's underneath the hood, if you would. And then we'll go ahead and unbox an AP6, an S8 PoE, as well as an S24 PoE, again, just so you can see what you get when you order from ISP Supplies. So I'm going to change my camera over to our desk camera, and we'll go ahead and crack open that AP6. Okay, so first of all, we have an AP6 here. I've gone ahead and removed all the screws, and actually it's quite easy to remove the top cover once you remove the screws. We obviously don't recommend that you do this, but for today's presentation, we wanted to show you a little bit about what's proprietary to ALTA Labs. So first of all, if you're a first-time user of ALTA Labs, you'll notice how well built our products are. You'll know they feel very heavy, and part of that is because this is actually an entire solid piece of milled aluminum. The reason for this is obviously we've done a lot to shrink the overall form factor of the AP6 and AP6 Pro. We want it to be the smallest form factor of all three axes, but then also provide the highest performance access point on the market. So in doing so, obviously we generate quite a bit of heat. That's what this heat sink's for, is to dissipate that. So our highest producing heat generating components are actually in the bottom of our PCB, coming in direct contact with the heat sink. And then this is used to then dissipate the heat throughout the entire heat sink. So that's why they do run a little warmer, but totally everything's within specifications. We pass our safety certifications to make sure that nothing is operating hotter than it should. So still plenty of performance available there, even if she gets a little warm. We've done some blanket tests, believe it or not, where we've done an iPerf test running maximum bandwidth through it and wrapped it in a number of wool blankets, and we still can't get it to overheat. Matt's the one to thank for that test. But right away, you'll also see some covers. This is again for some RF shielding with some of our Qualcomm chipsets, and then you'll be able to quickly see our proprietary antenna design here on our AP6. Obviously, the AP6 Pro will look a little bit different under the hood, but this is 100% an ALTA Labs PCB. Everything's been designed from the ground up here. We've specified every chip that's on this board, the placement of every chip, and then obviously the antenna design is proprietary to ALTA Labs. So that's why you're getting that between 20 and 40% improvement over our competitors on range and throughput. That's kind of where the secret sauce happens. So it's a pretty elegant little form factor. We're excited for you to get that in your hands and give it a shot.
Where's the antenna part on that, Chase?
So these are antennas for the AP6. So the AP6 Pro, you get two more antennas there.
Got it. Okay.
Just do this. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and unbox our AP6, AP6 Pro. Again, the form factors are identical from an exterior perspective, but we wanted to again give you an opportunity to see what's actually inside the box. So we've gone to great lengths to make sure our retail packaging is very nice, very presentable. Obviously, if you're in the retail store, If you're an installer, maybe that's less important to you, but very good box design. And then when you open it up for the first time, you'll see your first AP6 or AP6 Pro. There are some minor modifications to what's actually shipping now. We've reduced the amount of foam here, and this paper insert is actually no plastic. But you can go ahead and pull your access point out. Inside of the box, you'll see either an AP6 or an AP6 Pro. This particular form factor, we wanted to stick out in the marketplace. The reason we did this oblong rather than round or even rectangle predominantly is for our proprietary antenna design. So as you saw earlier, our antennas are placed in a certain pattern around our PCB to maximize and uniform RF dispersion around the access point. That combined with, it just happened to work out that we wanted to have a unique design that stuck out. So once you look at the ceiling or on the wall and you see one of our access points, we wanted you to be able to say, hey, this is an ALTA Labs access point. So that's the reason for that. Again, out of the box, you'll get an AP6 or AP6 Pro. We have our technical documentation. It's a single little insert with a QR code that'll take you to our quick start guide. Talks to you about the basics of setup. I'll give you a link to our mobile app with iOS and Android, as well as how to power it up and how to mount. So that's worth checking out. We also include a universal wall mount or surface mount bracket. This again comes with every AP6 and AP6 Pro. We've gone to great lengths to make sure these whole patterns line up with every single gain box, both low voltage, high voltage, or your metal boxes with a single gain or mud ring on it. And then obviously you can stick that right to any surface without a single gain box if you want. The idea behind this mounting bracket is that the cable runs through the ALTA Labs logo when it's mounted. So you can see when this is in its final position, there's still plenty of space for the cable to run through. In the event that doesn't work out or your cable's coming out at a weird angle, we've also given you plenty of room here to be able to come through and terminate that right inside of the RJ45. Our mount is obviously proprietary to ALTA Labs. We have a little video on it. We wanted to make it easy to use, but not easy to steal. And you'll have to go check out that video. But rather than slide straight up, you can see here, the first kind of step is to move this to pass that step. And then on this other side, this will actually go up when it's mounted to the wall and catch. And then based on our ALTA Labs logo here, this is also the same place where you take a flat blade screwdriver just to release that tooth and release it so you can pull it off the mount. So no need for a proprietary tool to undo the ALTA Labs access points from their mounts. So we're going to come back to that here in just a second. Jumping over to the hardware kit, we give you wall mount anchors as well for drywall or gypboard. We also give you some screws here to use in conjunction with our drop ceiling bracket, which we'll show you here in just a second. And then also these other screws here to be used with the drop ceiling bracket. And then we give you some rubber feet, 4 rubber feet, then get installed in these 4 locations here in the event that you wanted to throw that on a tabletop or on a shelf. Here is our wall mount bracket, or excuse me, our drop ceiling bracket. So this bracket actually is designed to have a dual purpose. Number one, if you wanted to mount it to the actual T-grid, we give you these clips here. You can back out the Phillips head screw. Again, not a proprietary Allen wrench set, just a standard Phillips screw, a little smaller. You back those out, and then you actually slide the T-grid here, and you click it on, and you use those set screws to kind of bite into the T-grid. And then once that's up, you use the smaller hardware screws in the hardware kit to then mount your bracket right on top of that. So now you can mount right to a T-grid using that lever. In the event that you wanted to mount it actually on a drop ceiling tile rather than on the T-grid, you take this and actually stick it behind the T-grid, and then, or excuse me, stick it behind the drop ceiling panel, put the drop ceiling panel here, and then sandwich that in between these 2 mounts and use some of those longer screws in the hardware kit, essentially allowing that to sit anywhere on your drop ceiling tile. So anyways, that's an AP6 Pro. Jonathan, Byron, any questions on that or anything you want to add?
No, love the attention to detail here. I can tell that there was a lot of back and forth until you got it just how you wanted it. So.
That's right. Most of us have had some time in the field actually doing install work too, so we've been able to kind of know where the frustrations lie and remove those from our product. So next, we're going to go ahead and move over to our S8 PoE. This is a brand new switch that barely started to ship in the United States, actually North America. We're really excited about this, obviously. Packaging is a little bit different here. Obviously, less focus on retail packaging, but still very elegant, very clean. A lot of recycled material in this one, so you're able to just throw it right in your recycle bin. Similar form with the foam on the top, and then you'll notice we have a power supply here that's inside of the box. This is proprietary to us. Again, it's designed to provide the appropriate amount of power to the S8 chassis with the POE budget that we put inside of it. We actually got some wall mount screws here with the anchors that I'll show you how to use those here in just a second. We've got our documentation for the S8. This is a little bit different than our AP documentation, where you'll see there's a number of different items on a fold-out where there's some safety instructions. What I wanted to draw your attention to is this. This is a template for our wall mount bracket with every single S8 POE. So we'll come back to that here in a second as well. Actually, we'll jump into that. If you pull out the S8 POE right behind it is the actual surface mount bracket that we've included with every 8-port switch. Again, that lines up so you can use it as the template first. Then you can mount this to the wall in any fashion or any potentially low voltage enclosure. We'll go ahead and pull this out and show you how this mounts to our S8 here in just a second. Then behind this wonderful packaging is this beautiful S8 POE. It's very elegant. We decided that we wanted to create something that looked good, obviously in a rack or as part of a gaming rig, or obviously could be comfortably tucked away in the alcoves or in the catacombs of the project. But on the S8 POE, it's a plastic enclosure, runs very cool. We've gone to great lengths to make sure that these things don't get hot to the touch like some of our competitors.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a full 8-port of a gigabit per port available to you. The first 4, you'll notice these little lightning bolts that indicate the POE, the ports have POE available to them. The factory reset button there. On the bottom, you'll notice we've got a rubber foot, and this ALTA Labs logo here also doubles as the grab point for our wall mount bracket. The keyholes here as well, used for wall mount. You don't have to use this if you don't want, but this also lines up so you can come in and insert that right into that. Slide it forward. Now that's ready to go on that wall mount bracket. So pretty happy with that design. This little tab behind here, you have to use that to release it. Comes off and you're ready to go. So again, trying to make your life easier from an install perspective if you wall mount any of those switches. Any questions on the 8-port switch, guys? Anything else you guys want to mention?
So this switch, it does PoE and PoE plus?
That's correct. Yeah, so the 4 ports are both PoE and PoE plus. So it'll auto sense what the appropriate amount of wattage to send by plugging it in.
Okay. And this is also the switch that's in the launch pack as well, that we'll touch on later on.
Good point. All right. You move this off of our desk, and then we will move into the S24. So rather than unbox both an S16 and an S24 PoE, they're pretty much identical other than the number of ports. Also, the one major difference between the S24 and the S16 is S24 actually features a handful of SFP plus or 10 gig uplinks, which I'll show you here in just a second. Get ready to unbox this. I've already unboxed this one, so there's some really nice ways that you can pull that open. Give you some branding right there. Gate. And then very first, you'll see our hardware kit that comes with each S16, S24. Inside of that, number 1 is always our technical documentation. You can scan that for access to all of our quick start guides and all the many languages. So we've translated that into also a link to our mobile apps. We'll give you our power cords tucked in here. Hiding behind our hardware kit actually are our rack mount ears, which I'll show you where those go here in just a second. And then in our hardware kit, the proprietary, or for the first time ever proprietary ALTA Labs, is rather than give you cage nuts for your rack mount installation, we've partnered with Rack Studs, and we're giving you Rack Studs Duo, S16 and S24 PoE switch. If you haven't used those before, and they are super slick, it's completely toolless design. These are designed to snap inside of where you normally install your cage nuts, and then you can hand tighten those down. And they actually have a pretty exciting. Those are just your rack mount screws that will install the rack mount gears onto this switch. So from there, I'm going to do this without trying to.
I love that the setup instructions and everything is on a nifty little QR code right on top, because it's very frustrating buying a new product and having to leaf through an entire booklet just to figure out how to set it up, how to put it together. So
That's
very
right.
nice touch there.
Thanks, Jonathan. And honestly, our experience is documentation changes too, right? There may be something else
Right.
that we add or subtract. It's easier, so we don't have to always burn a lot of paper. It's easier to keep it electronic.
Absolutely.
Can I add one thing, Chase?
Of course.
The idea behind our products is that you don't need documentation, and there's a lot of thought behind the user experience during the design process, so that you don't need documentation. Obviously, we'll provide documentation, but we hope you don't need it, and that's the goal.
That's right. Yeah, kind of the thought behind the network elevated tagline is we want the most basic user or first time user or even the most advanced user to be able to unbox our products, install it, as to Matt's point, not have to reference a manual and be able to very quickly install enterprise world-class networks. So,
and I think it's a nice touch with all the mounting options that are already included instead of it being a separate kit. So regardless if one's going on a wall, one's in the ceiling, and one's going to be on a desktop, all of that's included, which I think is a really nice touch.
mm-hmm. Thanks, Byron. That's a good point. Really good point. Trying to think through all the gotchas. So on the S24, a couple things you'll notice is the chassis are actually the exact same size between the S16 and the S24. The idea is we wanted to give you something you could count on, right? Not always vary the size. Our 48 port switch will also come out in the exact same form factor. The only thing that'll change is the number of ports here and kind of the alignment on our SFP modules here. But essentially, it's a pretty standard network switch that's in a warm U form factor. But as you start looking at some of the detail that we built into this, first of all, we have the ALTA Labs logo. This actually can be turned on or off, and there's a number of different colors you can set within the management platform. We have some system default colors there, so in the event that there's an alarm, that'll show up a different color. Just standard boot up and nominal state, it'll have different colors. You'll also notice the heat exchange there on the very top. So that we wanted to be able to run the switches as quietly as possible and keep them as cool as possible. So you'll notice that we have heat vents everywhere. In development, we noticed our SFP Plus cages were some of our top heat producing items on our PCB boards. So that's why we have extra ventilation here. You notice on the side, we've got heat vents. Even when you install a rack gears, you're able to still have some heat exchange right there on the side. We've got the two fans here on the back, which you can kind of see. The other side is identical. Again, 24 ports, 16 of those ports are PoE enabled. You can see that based on the PoE status icon here. And then in circles, these are all, again, PoE and PoE plus. There's 120 watts available on the 16 port and 240 watts available on the 24 port. As I mentioned, the SFP modules here are capable of SFP plus up to 10 gig, both of those. And then on a 16 port, those will only be 1 gig uplinks. So we do have Bluetooth built into the switches as well, all three models, just like the access points. The idea being there is ease of setup, ease of use on mobile applications. So in the event that you need to use your mobile app and you don't want to have to worry about being on the network or whatnot, on the same Wi-Fi network, you could then see the switch or the access points in the mobile app, and it would add to the site, similar to what you'll see here in just a minute with Matt and I, our demo. But any other questions on the switches, unboxing, Jonathan, Byron?
Hey, let's talk about the boot up. I think some of the questions is how noisy the switches are. So the noise that you'll hear is just on boot up.
That's right. Yeah, Tony's point, again, we wanted the switches to run very quiet. So there's no fan in the 8 port, there's no fan in the 16 port. The 24 does have those two fans we showed you. Initially, they spin up to maximum. That's part of the boot up process. So number one, make sure they're working. And if they don't spin up, then there will be a system alarm if there's a fan failure. Some would even say, it could be considered kind of an initial blowout. But then from there, the firmware then restricts those fans down, and it will augment and increase the fans based on the demand, the power demand within the chassis or the ambient thermal temperature. So,
I mean, it's kind of like when you start your car, right?
That's right. You got to rev it up.
Mm-hmm. Is there an ETA as to when you're planning to release the 48 port switch?
It's a good question. Definitely by the end of next year, hopefully third quarter of 2024 is our target launch date on the 48 port switch.
And are you planning on having SFP plus ports on there, or any SFP28, like the 25 gig ports on there?
Good question. We haven't decided that just yet. We're looking at kind of what the market's wanting, what the market's demanding, what we can do from a stacking perspective. If we're going to do 2 or 4 cages on the SFP side, more likely it'll be 4. So TBA, we'll definitely share that as soon as we get a little bit closer.
Excellent, thank you.
Maybe it's a good time to plug our forums. If those are kind of the features that you're looking for, please join our forum, forum.alta.inc, and request those features, especially as we're deciding on what we want on our next switches. Let us know what you need.
Yeah, good point.
That's a great forum too. It's very interactive.
Guys,
a lot of users on there, and you guys jumping in there answering questions too. So yeah, it's been very active.
Yeah, and touching on the 24 and the 48 port, is the 48 port going to be all PoE, or are you still going to do a hybrid of some data and some PoE?
So good question, Byron. And that's where we'd encourage everyone on the forum to go check that out and provide some feedback there. Our goal is to obviously satisfy the masses first. Since we only have one 48 port switch, we'll want to make sure we appeal to those that need the higher, if there's a large quantity of people that need the higher uplink speeds or need a full PoE budget across all 48 ports. So really, we'd love to have your feedback on that from a community perspective. If that is a benefit to you and we see that generally most people want that, then we will absolutely include that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
the user feedback is key.
That's right. We live and die by it, so we love it.
Right.
We're definitely community driven, so anything that you guys need, let us know.
Right. All right. Well, if everyone's okay with it, I'll share my screen and we'll pull up the management platform and give you a little intro to that, and then I'll actually hand it over to Matt from Atlanta, and he'll be able to take it from there.
Excellent.
So actually, before I do that, let me show you what we've got going on behind us. So I've got, just straighten that up a little bit. So in our rack right here, we actually have, in one of our labs, we have our S8 PoE, we have a number of access points, and then we have our S16 and S24 switch right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go share this screen, and then hopefully you'll be able to see this too. Well, we'll get back to that, I guess. So first of all, maybe let's start from the dashboard. So when you first log in and create an account, manage.alta.inc, you can create that now. We don't charge for access into the management platform, and access to this actually comes with every single access point and every single switch. So we're obviously a little unique in that regard, in that we don't have any sort of licensing fees or software renewal fees. When you buy your hardware, at that point, we'd ask you to just go use our management platform, and again, we don't charge you for that. At some point, we're looking at potentially a set of premium features that may be something that more of an enterprise user or super user would use. At that point, those would be obviously features that our install partners would be able to take advantage of and potentially mark up and make a little money on too. But everything that's in the management platform now will be free for the life of ALTA Labs, right? So you don't need to worry about anything in there all of a sudden costing money to run or to use. And again, and one of the benefits of being cloud managed is we're able to obviously push new feature updates all the time, which we do. Just looking at where we started, 6 months ago with the number of features and where we are today, there's so many more features that we've launched and just included for, again, just the cost of purchasing ALTA Labs equipment. And that's it. So,
awesome.
Sorry, Byron, did you have a question? All right.
No.
So wonderful. So again, you can jump in here. Obviously, it gets a little more fun when you start installing products. But I'm going to leave most of this to Matt. I wanted to just show you a couple things. First of all, I'm going to come over to settings here, and under users, you'll be able to see that currently we've got Jeff Hansen, who's our CTO, Matt Bayer, who's on our technical team, and then myself. And I need actually Matt Hardy to come in and help us out on this site. So I'm going to go ahead and invite a user. I'm going to invite him at matt@alta.inc. So that invite's going to pop over to Matt here, and he'll be able to take control of the site here in just a second. But again, I wanted to show you our network. So we've got a handful of devices that are already plugged in. You'll notice I've got 3 AP6s, 1 AP6 Pro, and an S24 PoE. So if you watch my camera now, I'm going to come over and plug in our S16 here. It'll also light up our S8 PoE. And then I'm also going to take an AP6, I believe it's an AP6 Pro, AP6. I'm going to plug it into port 1 on our S8 PoE. And then here, in just a matter of moments, they should show up here on our management platform. So you'll see here, there's the 16 port switch popped up. I can click setup here. I'm going to let Matt take advantage of that. And then
That was pretty fast.
It was really fast. And if this needed a firmware update, I could click setup, firmware update, and that whole process takes less than 20 seconds. You'll also see the S8 and that other AP6 show up here momentarily, but I don't want to steal all of Matt's thunder, so I'm going to stop showing my screen. There's the other 8-port switch that just popped up. So Matt, if you want to take over.
Okay, switching to Matt's screen.
Okay, you got it? Let's see.
Sure.
Okay, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Sure.
So, as you can see, my site is awesomely named Hardy Party. I see the new site Lab, so I'm going to switch to it. And also, I just want to point out that Chase likes dark mode. I don't know, he's a millennial, and I like white mode. That's a cool feature we have that we switch back and forth, right?
Right.
So just to give you a quick introduction, you can configure each access point individually, you can configure the switches, and we have these modal windows that we can move around and configure. But the first feature I wanted to show you, and this is the ALTA Lab. If you can see, there's one SSID, and what I was going to say is, if you haven't heard about this, we call it ALTA Pass, and it's basically like if Keanu Reeves invited me to his house, and he wanted like Keanu guest, etc. You don't need to have all those SSIDs. You can just create one SSID with different passwords, and you can have a guest or different types of settings with the same SSID based on the password. So that's what we call ALTA Pass. So that's the coolest feature we have. So if I create one guest password called Keanu Reeves, then that will emit, like if you connect to that SSID with that password and you type Keanu Reeves, you'll be assigned to the guest network, and you don't have to have 8 different SSIDs showing up at your house. So that was a cool feature that we it's patent pended, right?
Matt, we did, yes. Will you actually go back to that? I wanted to showcase one other thing in Wi-Fi. So Jeff has gone to great lengths of taking kind of industry standards under passwords there, Mike or Matt, where you see show more, the little link up above, a little lower right there. Perfect. So there's 5 predefined network types that you can also choose based on password. Again, these are based on industry best practices from, obviously our team. We've got 20, 30 years of RF engineering deploying Wi-Fi networks. Rather than have to go in and make a lot of those configuration changes yourself, you can quickly decide, standard large IoT, Matt's guest for Keanu's house, and you can get a quick definition of what's available there for the predefined network type. So, sorry, Matt.
Is there a limit on how many passwords you can have for one SSID?
Good question. And no, there's no limit.
Yeah, there's no technical limit. No.
Okay. What is the most amount of passwords that you've seen on a user's account?
Good question, Matt. I can take that one. We've got a project actually just outside of Notre Dame, and they're using 74 passwords.
Oh wow!
On a single SSID. And
I was
a little bit
expecting
about
20-ish or so.
a little bit about that project. So it's actually an MDU project. It's a bunch of apartment complex, or it's a larger apartment / condo complex, brand new. It's designed to obviously appeal to the students that are coming from Notre Dame, but rather than have to have a single SSID for every single tenant, the developer came to us and said, listen, I really just want one SSID and I want my tenants because there's a lot of common areas, right? There's actually a recording studio in this apartment complex. There's like a gaming lounge. And it's really cool, right? Really, really exciting to, to future students or current students. But rather than have to go into a different part of the complex and log in with a different username and password or anything else, once they've logged in, they can walk around anywhere in the project and still be within their own subnet, because we're also assigning a VLAN and they're giving them their own pool of IP addresses. So kind of fun project. We'll actually have a case study published on that here in about 30 days.
Very cool.
Hey, Matt, can you go back?
I just have one more question. Would users have the ability to create like a splash page or a login page?
Yeah, of course. For instance, I could create a new SSID and enable the hotspot feature, which it's built into the access point. So you can create a built-in hotspot, or you can configure an external one. We're working with multiple third-party vendors to support external hotspots. So right now, the built-in one is super easy. All you have to do is click this button and it works.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Going back to the ALTA Pass, one thing, if you click on, Matt, if you go back up real quick, that I want to point out, you can actually rate limit these passwords as well. So there is more options. So if you click on add password, or even now click on the drop down at standard, scroll down, you can assign VLANs and set rate limits. I think that's one of the unique features as well on ours, or even bypass hotspot, ignore schedule if you have a schedule, or bypass filter based on that password. So it's not just your typical PPSK that others are using. We have a lot more. Chase mentioned those categories, and now you can also do all these other things based on that password.
It's pretty flexible and extensible, and I've never seen anything like it before. And I've been in this industry for a long time, so I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very awesome.
The second thing I was going to talk about is the color feature. It's a little confusing for people when you first try it or you first see it. You can see there are two networks that we've set up in the lab. I'm not familiar with the lab, so I'm just now seeing it. But there's a gray color and a red color, and what that means is you can assign different access points to different colors. Let me switch back to the more awesome Hardy Party. And I have different colors, so I can create different SSIDs on different colors. So if you see, I have all these SSIDs that I try to break the products with. I try to do crazy stuff. But I have a red color that's this access point. And if you go here, you can see I have assigned different access points to different colors. So you can have different settings. It's completely flexible and extensible, and you can tell it's been designed by a super nerdy engineer that thinks about these things. So yeah, it's pretty cool. The colors, at first, it might seem a little confusing, but once you get used to it, it's a super cool feature.
It definitely helps as you have multiple access points. As the admin, you'll see exactly which access point is broadcasting which SSID and making sure which one is broadcasting the right ones, just right off of your network dashboard. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And there's a lot of also debug information built in. You can see this is wirelessly uplinked. This is mine. So wirelessly uplinked to my living room. And you can see what LLDP information is available. Based on what's connected to what. So there's a lot of stuff, and real-time data, that's all free, like Chase said. So you don't have to, pay for that. And as we just demonstrated, Chase set it up in Utah, and I can immediately access his from Atlanta. So it's pretty cool. Like,
Matt, while you're there, since you're in Atlanta, will you click the setup button so everyone who watches this see how quickly these APs and switches come online?
Sure, let me just do all three.
That's exactly what I was going to ask too. I want to see how fast it is.
Just watch how fast it is.
while those are going, Matt, can you touch on the process? Because I know a lot of our customers need to do that wireless uplink, just based on the inavailability of pulling the cables. Can you walk us through that process? Because when I played with that, I was pretty impressed with that. So could you walk us through the steps if you do need to do a wireless uplink to one of the access points?
There's not really much to say, to be honest. You just plug it in and it works. That's all you have to do.
It's true.
I don't really know what to say. You obviously have to power it on with PoE, but you don't need Ethernet. You just plug it in and it powers, and then it immediately syncs up as long as you're on the same site. They talk with each other, privately, and find each other, and then it just shows up. Just like when Chase plugged his in, it just showed up. It's the same exact thing.
So I can add.
And that was the part that I found was absolutely amazing. I didn't see a difference in the one that went directly into the switch versus one that I just used a PoE injector just to play with. They both appeared just as quickly and was the same setup process. So from my standpoint, I wouldn't have known. There was nothing additional that I needed to do. They just came online, and it was almost scary how seamless that was to use. It's a very nice feature.
So let me just add one thing, and then Chase, you can go. I'm a security guy. I bug Jeff all the time about stuff like this doesn't seem very secure, but I mean not in a negative way. Just like, hey, what do you think about this? But you still have to have access to the management interface to click the setup button. So it's like magic. They find each other, and then once you set them up, it just works. But I want to say there's been a lot of thought put behind the security process as well with the ALTA setup.
Yep. Perfect. And well, you both kind of touched on something. I just wanted to just make sure it's clear is you still have to have one that's hardwired, right? And once that one is hardwired, you set up your first network. It's a matter of just powering them up with your PoE injector or another switch that maybe is desolate, right? That is not connected. It needs a wireless backlink. And once it is truly amazing how quickly that comes online. And then number two, Jeff has developed our proprietary meshing algorithm. So there's a couple things built into that. Number one, obviously, I think we've all been victim of an infinite mesh loop. If the ISP goes down, right, somebody cuts fiber out in front of the building, all the APs lose connectivity and think, oh, I got to mesh to each other to try and find a path to the outside world. ALTA Labs access points don't do that. They actually randomize, will start to mesh independently from one another based on a randomized algorithm, so that if one does successfully get to the outside world, then eventually the additional APs will jump online and mesh through that AP that has connection to the outside world. Also, there's an auto optimization feature built into that. So rather than have them, kind of be meshed with one another, it'll try and reduce the number of hops and ultimately try and improve the maximum amount of performance and efficiency within those hops. So that if in the event that you need to use ALTA Labs APs in a mesh format, you're not seeing your typical mesh degradation what you would with other manufacturers. Now, I mean, there's still going to be signal degradation. We still recommend you hardwire all your APs if you can. But we know that's not always possible. That's why we've put together a pretty solid mesh offering inside of our solution. So anyway, sorry, Matt, go back to you.
Yeah, so I don't think like the people in the Utah office, they're not working hard enough. So I'm just going to block YouTube.
TikTok too.
All right, let's try it.
That's also worth mentioning. So our, those maybe they're a little skeptical on a free, and we don't like to use the word free, right? Because we don't want to degrade the perception of our cloud offering, right? We just include a very well-built ecosystem for you to use with all of ALTA Labs products. One of the ways we do that is we actually keep a lot of the processing, a lot of the reporting, analytics, and tools that we're showing you within the confines of the actual access points and switches. So we built out a lot of the architecture from a chipset perspective, so that all of the reporting analytics is done within the hardware itself, And then what Matt's showing you is the DPI engine that's built into the access points as well. So they don't have to go back to the cloud and say, hey, am I supposed to filter this? Am I supposed to filter this? Matt will set this. As soon as he hits save, it pushes that config out into the access points. Now that lab access points will filter TikTok, YouTube, or you can list URLs, or you can list, genres, right? So if you anything that has to do with chat, it would block. That's not very typical from any other manufacturer. You generally have to pay for that or use some other outside third party. We are once again just giving that to you with every single access point that you purchase. Unfortunately, the DPI engine doesn't work on our switches just because of the nature of a switch. But when our security appliance comes out, our router firewall by the middle of next year, we'll be able to take advantage of some of these features as well. But anyway, sorry, Matt. I feel like I keep hogging the mic. Back to you.
No, I'm excited.
Would
I'm
like
gonna
to
start
touch.
doing this as a prank.
So for those applications, is it set by access point, or would it be defined by a password, or could you, for the kids, can you go in and block that, or would it restrict it on the access point as a whole?
Good question.
Good question.
Well, Chase, right now it's set system wide, but we have been talking about setting it SSID wide or password based. Chase, if you want to add something, you can add.
Yeah, we have recently deployed the ability to bypass the filter based on password. So you can either turn it off or turn it on based on password. But yeah, Matt's point, we're looking at, potentially trying to vary the rules based on password or vary the rules based on SSID. So more to come there, but for now, we at least allow you to turn it on and turn it off based on password.
Okay. Yep. That's what I was going to say as well. So maybe it's a good one to jump into the schedule as well, Matt. Maybe let's show the schedule. What's unique about ours is that once you turn on the schedule, our SSID can still broadcast. So that's unique about us. The reason why our SSID can still broadcast is that you can request more time once you have that schedule turned on. For example, if a friend that comes in that doesn't want to abide by the same scheduling as your kids at home, he can request more time as soon as he sees that SSID. So as you see there, you can turn on or off requesting downtime. So, and then you can also bypass the schedule based on the password as well, as long as the filtering that Chase just mentioned.
Oh, y'all did think of everything, huh?
Right.
The crazy thing that I also want to add from the engineering side is a lot of these features are, usually considered part of a security gateway or a layer 3 device, but these are layer 2 access points, and they still do all of the same things, which, to me, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought this was possible. And now, we have all these amazing features. So, and I'm not a sales guy. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just telling you they're kind of cool.
Good point.
Anything else you guys want to see?
Maybe,
obviously we have real-time,
Yep.
Data. You can see the charts.
Are you able to download reports like 30 days, 60 days, anything like that?
Not currently, but that analytics and reports is something that we've talked about.
That's right. Matt, maybe will you pull up Site Manager? Let them see Site Manager. Perfect. So, one of the common questions we get is, especially in a trade show format or even just guys calling in, is, hey, we manage a lot of sites, right? And it was ALTA Labs built with multi-tenancy in mind. And the answer to that is a resounding yes, obviously. We wanted you to very quickly be able to manage all of your sites and see them from a single pane of glass. So it's one of the reasons we've given you Site Manager. You can pop in here and very quickly see all the sites you manage. You can see if there's any devices that are disconnected or total number of devices connected, if any devices need updates. We also give you the ability to clone a site. So if you have a number of, let's say, Starbucks locations that you're deploying access points for, and you get the configs just right, and then you don't have to go in there and redo that every time, like what you just saw Matt do, he's able to use that copy config, and you can go in and do that for any number of sites. So that basically all you have to do is once that's set up, you go in, add your access points or your switches or both, and you're done. Another cool feature we built into the platform, Matt, I'm sorry to have you go navigate, but if you'll jump over to Network for us, and then hit that magnifying glass up next to live. So another common feature we get is if I have a specific MAC or IP address or name on a certain site, but I can't remember what site I put it on, how do I search for that? So Matt's point there, if you just on a local site, you could type in S24, hit the magnifying glass, and it stays within that site. But if you did S24 and then hit the global search, it would search all of Matt's sites. So we wanted to, again, as a user, give you the ability to quickly, what was that call? I know it was a 24-port switch, or what was the IP? What was the MAC? Just again, trying to streamline your workload as an installer. So.
And then also to show, we do keep some, to your question, Jonathan, we do keep data, and you can change it to see the data recently. We don't have a way to export it currently, but it's there. So
very cool. Something to look forward to for a future release.
Well, Jonathan, another question we get is, okay, well, I see you guys are reporting on top active devices, top network devices. Are you routing my traffic through your cloud infrastructure? Obviously, a lot of people are very security conscious. That's a big question, big concern. The answer to that is no. We don't route any of traffic through our cloud infrastructure. Everything stays at the confines of your access points and your switches. What Matt's showing you there is basically an aggregate data points that our cloud queries the access point to share, but you can see it's very sterile. There's not any sort of, hey, here's the origination point, endpoint, here's the actual data that's traversed the network. So we've gone to the great extent to make sure we're following all of the industry best practices from a security and compliance perspective, so that in the event you're dealing with banks, for example, our APs and switches are CPI compliant. And then if you're dealing with hospitals, we're HIPAA compliant. So, that level of security and attention to making sure everyone feels confident about what we're seeing and what we're not. Obviously, we're not looking to get anybody in trouble or look at anybody's data. So.
Right. And are there plans in the future of putting together like an on-site controller?
Question. Tony, you want to take that one?
So yeah, we are working on, based on the requests. I think that wasn't on our priority list at the beginning, but as we are community driven, we listen to our customers. As a request came in, we actually had it on low priority, but now we bumped it up to high priority. So that will be out hopefully the first part of next year. The goal is, awesome. The conservative answer is by June of next year, but hopefully we hit it around March timeframe.
Beautiful, thank you. That's good news.
For sure. So one thing, Matt, if you want to go back to the lab, one of the questions at trade shows is, or requests is to make some of these changes real time. And ours, it is pretty snappy. When you make these changes real time, it happens right away, and it doesn't take down the network. So you can actually do an RF scan for me real quick, Matt. You can do this during working hours. Some of the admins that do these changes, they have to wait until the people leave the office before they make some of these changes, because it takes down some of these access points, puts them into isolation mode. But ours, you can do it real time, and it doesn't take down the network.
Okay, living room, ready? Okay, so let me click the full scan. I'm in a very crowded building in downtown Atlanta, so there's going to be a lot of stuff. So let's click full scan and see what the access point shows.
Could you do a quick
we use this information?
Point? Maybe do both at the same time.
So we can do both, sure.
So the full scan
office and within quick scan. Let's see the difference. So the access points use this to pick what channels they're going to operate on, and it does this, when they first boot up. But it's pretty interesting. I'm on Wi-Fi right now. I haven't been disconnected. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love the scan
I don't
feature. It
even know
takes
what
all the
happened.
guesswork out of it. So, yeah.
I'm connected to Office. So, you know, it's kind of cool. You can run scans, you can make changes. I could probably change the setting right now and not get disconnected. So it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Well, one thing while you have those cards up, if you can touch on fallback upon failure, I think some of the times you can limit some of those truck rolls if you're typing in your remote office assigning the wrong VLAN, or when you have a static IP and putting the wrong IP address. Sometimes, or actually our competitors, it knocks down the whole access point, and then you might have to do a truck roll and to do a hard reset at the location. Ours, it will fall back upon the last known working state of that access point instead of knocking it down completely if you accidentally mistype some of these configuration or settings or IP addresses.
Yeah,
Very cool.
and we've just to add to that, we've added a lot of tooltips here. So like I was saying earlier, we don't want a product where you have to go read manuals to figure out how to use it. We want it to be intuitive. So we've been adding these tooltips. So if enabled, the device will fall back to VLAN 1 and DHCP. So we add a lot of information there. Always on, you know, if the device can't access the internet, you can turn this off, and so that it doesn't broadcast SSID. So we have lots of features here. And we try to add as much built-in documentation to the product as possible.
All right, one question that I know that you guys have probably gotten a lot, I know I have, is an outdoor model. So I believe that's on the roadmap as well, but also the AP6 Pro is, I believe, is IP54 rated. So can you give us some guidelines where you've seen these installed and the limitations of what you would, where you would safely install those in an outdoor setting?
Yeah, so good question. So yeah, with an IP54 rating, it doesn't make us completely immune to dust and water, but it gives us a pretty decent rating. So generally what we'd recommend there is underneath like a covered patio or an eave of a house or a building, in order for it to receive like direct moisture, like if you want to take a hose to your access point for whatever reason, we would need that IP67 or even 68 rating, which that's something, as you mentioned, is coming. We'll hopefully have our outdoor access point shipping by early Q2. And that will carry full IP68 ratings, so you can pole mount it. It could be out in the elements. It'll have high temp, low temp ratings. Right now, the AP6 Pro, it can still be placed outside, but again, we will want it to be somewhat protected, specifically that backplane and the RJ45 port. But covered patio, covered eaves of a building or house. So nothing that's going to allow it to see direct moisture, but again, if you need to throw an access point outside and you've got those kind of installation circumstances, don't hesitate to throw the AP6 Pro outside.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just to add to Chase's point, we do have a customer that just installed some AP6 Pros at a softball field and put them outside under an eave, like Chase said. He's pretty happy with it.
There's some RV parks as well that have it under like a power outlet box. And there was like 20 of them at each campsite or RV sites that they have these access points on, which has worked pretty well for them. It's been running for about three months now. Yeah, for next year, we're coming out with our 48 port switch. I think Chase mentioned that earlier. On-premise controller that's coming out, an outdoor access point that's on a high priority list. And then also a router that's going to be out as well. Anything else that you want to touch on, Chase, that we may have coming out next year?
Yeah, that's pretty much it from the hardware perspective. Again, we'd encourage anyone to come join us on our forum to share ideas for products and features. What you will see from us is actually on top of the hardware is additions inside of the management platform, and then obviously that would then enable certain features within the switches and the access points. So right now, for example, we just pushed out IGMP snooping on our switches last week. That's a pretty standard feature that everyone wants. 802.1x is something that we'll be coming out with in the next probably week or two on our switches. And then we've got some other fun ideas within the access points themselves, some features around as we kind of mentioned, a little more granular filter permissions that we'll roll out. Again, that's not going to be charged for. We're looking at some more advanced channel planning from the RF side that will roll out as we get into next year. We've got some more exciting ideas. A little probably too early to tell, but we just know it's around ALTA Pass. You've seen what we've done so far. We're gonna strengthen that even more. We've got things like that that make 2024 really exciting, and then obviously beyond. So
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think we would all be remiss if we didn't discuss the launch pack promo. I don't know if this is going to be a limited time, so hopefully we can get this message out soon enough. But Tony, maybe would you like to cover the ALTA pack or the launch pack promo that you're currently running?
Yeah, for sure. So we announced this at Wistapalooza. It's one launch pack per customer, not per company, and it includes 2 access points and 1 switch. It's 2 AP6 Pros and 1 8-port switch. The reason why I want you guys to test out our access point and our switch inside our controller. So it is going to be a limited time, so make sure you purchase it as quickly as possible. It probably won't run further past this year. So I think there will be an end date. So let us know if you have any questions. Reach out to ISP Supplies.
Thank you, gentlemen, for today's presentation and for going over all the information and the hands-on demonstrations as well. If anybody is interested in the launch pack, please reach out to ISP Supplies. You can email us at sales@ispsupplies.com, or you can give us a call. Our number is 855-947-7776 or 855-WISP-PRO. And we'll be more than happy to talk to you a little more about the ALTA Labs solutions here, both switches and access points. So without further ado, thank you very much, and hope everybody has a great rest of your week.